Hi there. We're in the Digital Humanities Center at Vanderbilt University with Mickey Casad, who's showing us The Country Bunny, which was one of her favorite books. And as Laura Miller once wrote, the first time we fall in love with a book shapes us every bit as much as the first person we fall in love with. And that emotional attachment may affect the choices that we make as adults. So we're going to ask Mickey some questions about one of her favorite books. What was the first book you fell in love with, Mickey?
Oh, this is definitely the one. And I didn't realize that I was in love with it for a really long time. It was just kind of there. I think that quote is spot on in the sense that this book profoundly shaped my sense of the world and what I wanted the world to be. Even before I realized it, I didn't realize it until I was in my 30s, and I kind of like looked back on the influence this book had had on me and was almost shocked to realize how deep it was. I probably read it for the first time when I was 4 or 5 years old.
What made the book special to you?
I don't know at first. You know, it was just a book that, I don't know, I latched on to somehow. I read it many times. The illustrations are fabulous. I mean, they're very kind of expressive, but then also almost very realistic looking pictures of rabbits that happen to be wearing clothing. But it was kind of these themes of justice and self-reliance and faith in oneself that really resonated powerfully with me when I was growing up as, you know, a little girl in Kansas. And years later, people would ask me what my favorite book was, and I would say it was this one. And I was kind of joking, I think, at the time, just because, you know, you ask a book nerd teenager what their favorite book is, and they say The Country Bunny and the Little Gold Shoes. It sounds kind of like ironic, but it wasn't totally ironic. It was definitely there. And then years later, when I reread it, I realized how kind of deep some of the messages were.
Did it capture your imagination in a way that you've reread it again?
I do reread it every now and then. There was a span of, you know, I guess my middle adult years, my early adult years before I had kids in my life, when I didn't really think about it that much. And then at some point, I started engaging with children a lot more again, and started really, really appreciating children's literature for kind of all that it has to offer. And I realized that this is a spectacular example of a kid's book that is really pitched to children, but then carries this really profound wisdom about life and what life is and what it takes to get through life in a way that's meaningful and good.
Great, thank you very much. I have one more question. In your work, is there a book that influences you?
When it comes to my work, you know, honestly, I think this book influences my work as well, because there's a lot in it about how the country bunny is, she grows up a little girl bunny, she dreams of becoming an Easter bunny, but the Easter bunny role is exclusively held for the swiftest and wisest and kindest bunnies, and they are always men in her world, and they tend to be white bunnies, and they tend to be male bunnies, and they tend to be rich bunnies, and everybody laughs at her when she originally says that she wants to be an Easter bunny, and she just kind of says, just wait and see. And then she has 21 babies, and she raises them, and you know, she doesn't really forget about her dream, but she organizes a really loving and joyful and well-functioning household. And I think, you know, one of the messages of this book is, how do you work together? And if you have a certain amount of agency in your life, how do you use that to organize a community that is functional and that is kind of joyful and creative, but also productive in a way. So honestly, I would say that this book influences me in that as well. But in terms of the thematic aspects of my professional life, digital humanities, I would say that I was deeply influenced, as were a lot of people, in roles like mine, by Catherine Hale's How We Became Posthuman, which is another great book, and another book that's doesn't only cross boundaries itself. It's about the nature of the boundaries that we assume are there and why we're so addicted to them and what it looks like to live beyond them in a way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Could you just say your name and where you work, please?
Sure. My name is Mickey Casad, and I work in the Vanderbilt Center for Digital Humanities.
Great, thank you.